Hey guys, welcome to our Fireside chat on Tuesdays as we normally have it. Today I'm Sweat Monster. Today's guest is Rachel Tomajczyk, and she is a Merrell athlete. We're going to be talking to her about just about everything from her coaching down to, her enjoyment of being a coach as well as being an athlete with Merrell. And so it's going to be a blast. And I got to say, that might be the fastest we've gotten all three of us onto this chat. Would you agree on?
Yes.
For like a second and a half. That was
And
so
that was
cool.
amazing. I didn't even get through the whole monologue.
We are ready.
I love this. As I was saying, so now I'm going to finish the monologue while you guys are here. We're going to chat with Rachel. We have questions for her. It's going to be just a simple conversation like old friends who've been hanging out for a long time. But if you have questions for Rachel, there's a little question mark down on the bottom right hand of the screen. Tap that, put your question in there, and we'll make sure we get that over to Rachel so she can answer it for us. Couple of things. One, for you female triathletes, the Monarch Triathlon will be taking place on October 22nd in Kingman, Arizona. And there is a discount code for 10% off registration, and that is July 4, and that'll last until Monday, July 4th. And for those of you who are looking to qualify for Boston, you can either hire Rachel as a coach to get you there, but also pick the right course, which will be at Idaho Running Day in Boise, Idaho on September 17th. There is there's 4 distances: 5K, 10K, half marathon, and marathon. It is about 410 feet of elevation. So if you're looking for flat, fast, and Boston qualifier, make sure you go to BoiseRunningDay.com and register there. Rachel and Ohm, thank you for joining us today on our Fireside chat. I think this is episode 12, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
And I did pronounce your last name correctly before you joined. It's Tomajczyk, for those of you who are wondering how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
So we were chatting in our green room before we got on this on the live section here, Rachel. And one of the things that we wanted to do first was congratulate you on your 1-year anniversary for being married. And we saw that posted on your timeline. So congratulations on that. But you started telling us an interesting story about how you met your husband. So tell the audience about it.
Yeah, so it's funny. I just saw him pop into the live, so he's watching. But yeah, so we met. I was on a different podcast, the Run Free Training podcast, and he was listening to that and was just getting into running. And he was like, "Wow, this girl seems pretty cool. I want to reach out to her for coaching, and who knows, maybe more." So he reached out, and we just started talking, and I started coaching him, but it was a week before we met up to run together in Virginia, and then we started dating. So I didn't coach him for long before we started dating, and now we're married. And yeah, yesterday was our first anniversary. So yeah, super exciting, super fun.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
One of the other things that we saw on your timeline was today you were doing behind the scenes video for shooting for Merrell. So the first thing that popped into my head is you're an athlete, you're training, you told us you're getting ready to race this weekend. How do you incorporate those photo shoots? Because you're running back and forth, you're sprinting, you're constantly going, how does that work?
Yeah, Ohm was there too. So I feel like it's kind of a fun day because yeah, you're on your feet a lot, you're running a ton. And so for me, those days are normally just my easy days or a rest day in training, but I'm still on my feet a ton. And that helps with training too. The last photo shoot that we did, we went for a 12-mile hike up a mountain and stuff. And so since I'm in trails and things like that, that's kind of training anyway. So it's just an easier training day where your heart rate's not getting up a ton, but you're still out on your feet, your legs are getting stronger and stuff like that. So I feel with things like that, I'll just kind of incorporate a really hard training block before I go into that week or that. Usually it's only a couple of days, and then those couple of days are a little bit lighter, but we're still out hiking and stuff. And then I'll go back to training afterwards.
Yeah, 12-mile hike's not easy and doesn't take, just a few minutes. That's got to be a handful of hours on your feet.
Yeah, we were there for a few hours. It was really fun. We had a great group of people with us. So just like
Mhm.
really encouraging people and fun. And yeah, we got to run back and forth a lot and do that over and over again and we like summited the mountain and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely like not an easy day like on your legs, but like effort wise, it's pretty like relaxed normally.
Well, we're type A, so if you know you're going to be hiking for hours, are you getting your hydration vest and making sure that's full and nutrition and everything else, like getting prepared for it?
Oh yeah, I brought up like a full backpack for the hike, and then but see, I feel like I had one of the lightest loads, even though it was like a full backpack, because we had guys that were like the cameramen were like hauling their giant cameras up the mountain and stuff. So I can only imagine like what they were feeling, you know.
We got to get those guys into trail racing then, because if they're used to carrying such heavy weight and they drop down in the weight, they'd be pretty fast.
Oh yeah. Well, one of the guys, this is the cool part about like the trail world that I like because I was on the track and the roads before this, but I feel like the guys that are into this type of photography and stuff like that, they are the adventure kind of guys. Like one of the guys is a really good like rock climber that was one of the cameramen. So, you know, they're guys out there that are doing like adventure stuff or they like tell us crazy stories of shoots that they've been on where they like almost died trying to get a shot and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that, but that's crazy that you did that.
Yeah, I'll sit back behind my laptop doing marketing stuff.
Yeah, right.
So we kind of just jumped into the conversation, but you mentioned you're trail running now, you were road and track before that. Tell us how you got started in running and how you eventually ended up in trail running.
Yeah, so it was really like back when I was younger, I was just always active and like playing outside and stuff. Always loved like running around. And my elementary school PE coach really noticed that I had like a gift and just like passion for running. We would do something called walk, jog, run when it was like nice outside. And he took us out to a soccer field and had a 400-meter like loop that we would run around or we could walk or jog. It kind of just like to get outside and stuff. So we did that and he noticed that I like always ran. I was always like just for some reason running and I would try to like the guys and stuff like that. So he really encouraged me to get into cross country like once I got into high school. So it was basically just like fun and I ran track in middle school but wasn't really like training hard, just kind of like running the races when they popped up and stuff, and then started training more in high school, ran in college, ran pro on the roads and track after college for a bit, and then I think I was just getting a little bit like tired of the constant pacing that the track
Yeah.
and the roads have, and it's just very like cutthroat, you know.
Yeah.
And so I started running on some trails that were around in Virginia where I was living at the time, and just really started loving it and loved just like the freeing feeling of like being out in the like forest for a long time and not having to worry about the pace because like each trail is different with how technical and steep or like downhill it is. So yeah, I just really enjoyed that, and so signed up for my first trail race and did it and just like loved it and caught the trail bug.
That's awesome. So I literally just wrote an article for our website that'll come out in July about lessons learned from a decade in the dirt, which I've been running trails for about 10 years now myself. And one of the things was like you don't rely on your watch for pacing anymore, right? Because one
Right.
mile might be straight up the mountain. I did read VK, which so you taught me something. I didn't know
Oh,
vertical
good.
kilometer
Yep.
either. That was pretty neat to learn. But yeah,
Yes.
so one mile you're going straight up, the next mile you're going straight down. Might be crossing a river, you might, who knows? And so, you just kind of learn to not rely on your watch when you're running on the trails, which is amazing.
Yeah, and it's definitely nice to have. Like, it's good to have the watch just to know, like, kind of what pace you're going,
Mm-hmm.
trying to, like, target a certain time for a course or something like that. But you're right, you can be so much more relaxed and just really go off of effort and know, like, if you're climbing up a ton and 1 mile is really slow, you'll probably gain back a lot of time, like on the downhill.
By the way, you heard Rachel say she was running 400 meters, right? So your story starts with a 1/4 mile run. My story starts with a 1/4 mile run, but somehow we didn't end up where she ended up. So
something happened. You started off with a 1/4 mile run as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was asked to participate in the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society to help raise money for an event. And I went to a track and I ran a 1/4 mile, and man, I was huffing and puffing. And I was like, why would people continue to do this? You know, and 15 years later, I've run 100-mile races. I raced Cocodona a couple years ago. So you never know where it's going to take you.
That's so cool. Yeah, you and have very similar stories then. That's really cool. That's something my husband and I talk about a lot, is just like, if you can put your mind to something and really like believe in yourself that you can do something, like a lot of things are possible. And it's crazy where you can get if you're just like dedicated and like want something bad enough, you know?
Absolutely. You were going to mention something?
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out Merrell, Canada athlete Reed Burrows. He's in the chat right now.
Nice. Hey, Reed. I haven't met him in person, but we've like shot messages back and forth a little bit. He trained in Arizona for a little while this year.
One of the things you were talking about, we're talking about trail running. In a post, you mentioned that you've learned a lot on the trails in the past year, and I'm going to list some of them, and I'd like you to talk about them because I think it's important for our audience, which tends to be a lot of beginners, to understand this stuff too, that we're always learning. So what you wrote was you've learned a lot about how to smile and love the uphill, how to pace yourself so you don't blow up at the end of the race. By the way, I'd love to learn that lesson because I haven't figured that out yet. How to fuel well, what to and not to carry on race day, and then how to let go on the downhill, which you said you're still learning to do. So if you don't mind touching on some of those, because there'll be some great lessons for our audience who are predominantly beginners who are just getting started in all this stuff.
Yeah, totally. Maybe we could go through them just one by one because I remember writing that post, but yeah, just remind me of the points.
How to smile and love the uphill.
Yeah, so that one I feel like it's important just to like enjoy what you're doing while you're running, even if it's painful, you know. And in trail running, it's cool because you do see so many like amazing views at the top and on the way to the top of a climb. So I think the more that you can just like enjoy it and like smile and kind of fake yourself into like enjoying it, if you're not enjoying it, the better it's going for you.
Yeah, I've got a quick story about that. I raced Western States in 2019, and going up Devil's Thumb, when I got to the top, I just stopped and looked over the mountain, and the volunteer was like, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" Because I just literally stopped. And I was like, I am totally fine. Look at this view. Why would we not want to look at this?
Yeah, that's so cool.
The next one was how to pace yourself so you don't blow up at the end of a race.
Yeah, so I, like I said, came from a track background, and I was doing mostly like steeplechase and 10K. I had done like one road half, but it was kind of like in the middle of training for like the faster races. So I wasn't like seriously training for it, or I guess I had done two, but they were both kind of like the same thing. So I hadn't done anything longer. So I did my first trail marathon, and it was like, I definitely blew up in it. Like I went out probably too fast, and I also just like was having stomach issues and not like putting down fuel well at all. So yeah, I've learned a lot about just like how to pace myself and how to fuel well, like during those longer races. Well, long for me. They're not like your Ohm's 100-mile races, and I'm sure I have like a ton more to learn about that kind of distance. But yeah, in the like shorter-ish like trail races that are like 4 to 5 hours, I think I've zoned in a little bit better on my nutrition strategy for sure.
So for those of you who are just joining us, my name is Jason Bahamundi. I'm one of the owners of Run Tribe Bike, along with Om Gandhi, who is our social media manager and one of our newest owners of the business as well. He's moderating the conversation, and we're joined by Rachel Tomajczyk, who is Merrell Pro athlete and who is racing this weekend coming up, and super excited to have her here. If you have questions for Rachel, just tap the little question mark on the bottom of the screen and type it in there. We'll make sure we get them to her for answers. So let's talk more about the fueling, because you just mentioned that, and that was also one of the things you said you've learned. Is it because you're trial and error during training? Is it, on the job while you're actually racing and you're like, okay, let me go back and look at my log on what I did right or what I didn't do right?
Yeah, well, actually, a big part of it was because not this past December, but the one before, I started having really, really bad stomach issues running. And I just like had to go to the bathroom like a ton while I was running. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And I ended up going to a doctor and figuring out that I have like a wheat and dairy intolerance that just like popped up suddenly out of the blue, out of like nowhere. So once I figured that out, I was able to like fuel a lot better, because I think my problem was like I wasn't eating, like if I ate wheat or dairy, I would have all of these stomach issues, and then I couldn't like take in nutrition because my stomach was like hurting and stuff. And so yeah, just getting that under control really helped me. And then now normally in races, I found like fuel that works well for me. I use the Huma gels. Those work really well for me. And I haven't had like stomach issues with those, which is great. And I usually take one like the first like at the 45-minute mark, and then about like 30 to 45 minutes after that, just like through the race. And I switch off. They have one with electrolytes, and they also have one that's just like normal. So I'll like switch off if I notice like I need some electrolytes, then I'll like take the electrolyte one. If I don't, then I'll just take the normal one. So yeah, that's really helped me a ton.
Yeah, so I think that's a great lesson for those of you who are joining us, right? It's testing, figuring out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Just because your buddy is using some particular product, it may not work for you. So, keep testing out throughout time. And when you're living in different areas, Rachel was in Virginia, she's now in Arizona, different climates, different altitudes. So you got to keep testing stuff to figure out what works for you, and make sure you nail that down. Because especially if you're doing these trail runs, and it could be hours before you get to the next aid station. So you got to make sure you know what you're doing.
Yeah, especially, well, and I think in my races that are kind of like the 3 to 5 hour mark, maybe, like I would say you don't need like a ton of things that are like other than gels. Like you might not need the hardcore like foods that you would need to ultra, but that's definitely something to experience or experiment with. Like if you're doing stuff over a trail marathon, or you're out there like a really, really long time.
Yeah, I raced out here with Aravaipa a couple of weekends ago, and yeah, it was about 5 hours. And so yeah, a handful of gels was all that I needed, because the flasks I had enough. I used Scratch, so it had enough electrolytes in them to get me through the 4 to 5 hours. So that's a really good point. So, and that kind of goes to the next thing, is what to and what not to carry on race day, right? So
Yeah.
when you're looking at the races that you're participating in, how in depth are you getting in terms of elevation change, aid stations, and are you plotting out what to carry, what not to carry between aid stations and the like?
Yeah, I definitely am. I think a lot of it depends on like how quickly I think I'll be able to run the race. Like I just did a race a couple weeks ago that like wasn't that long of a race, and so I didn't need to carry like a really heavy pack or like extra water, because they had enough aid stations on the way. In my first trail marathon, I did carry a lot of water, and I think that I learned I didn't do, just because there are so many aid stations along the way. And so the water just kind of like weighed me down and made it really hard on the uphills. And that course was tough too, because most of the uphills were in the very first part of it. So, your pack gets lighter water through the race, but it starts off the heaviest while I'm climbing, which is like not helpful at all. And the other thing with that was I was wearing like a pack that had like a bladder for water like in the back of it, and now I normally with just like a race vest that has like the bottles, and that's helped me a lot, because it distributes my weight like in front of me. So going downhill, I feel like that's helped me a lot, because you want your weight to be like more forward going down. If you have the weight like in the back, it's kind of like making you sit back a little bit more, which could like cause you to slide or fall a lot easier than if weight's like in the front.
You needed those cameramen to help you with your training on carrying the pack going uphill.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I did. For sure.
You mentioned going downhill. We actually just posted an article for tips on running downhill on our site, but it is a skill. So how do you practice it? You know, when do you practice it? How do you incorporate it into your training?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, you just have to practice on the terrain you're going to be racing on. So that's like something that's super important for me. If I know like the course profile and kind of what the trail is going to be like, I'll try to get as much practice as I can on stuff like that. So if it's a more technical course, I want to get into those like technical trails to run in. But if it's a fast course and the trails aren't as technical, I want to make sure that I have speed. So I'll practice on courses that are a little, or trails that are a little bit more flowy where I can get that speed in and stuff. But yeah, it really does just take practice. And the more and more I'm in trails, the more comfortable I've gotten with the technical things and our trails. And I still have a long way to go. I did a race in Europe earlier this year. You're just so good at the technical downhills. So I can definitely learn things from them. But yeah, it's like it's the more you practice, the better you get at something, and just believing in yourself too. So if you can't do something at first, don't just say like, I'm not good at this and write it off. Say it's something I'm working on, it's something I'm better at, and frame it like that instead of just like discounting it.
Yeah, that's great advice. You know, one of the things that we believe is that failure is just a building block for success, right? So take whatever it is you quote unquote failed at and learn from it. When you're with Run Free Training, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you work with your athletes through Run Free Training, are you working with them on logs on capturing those moments at what they can perceive as failure and working on them to get better at those things as well then?
Yeah, totally. Run Free Training is great because we have like 5 things that we focus on. We focus on the training aspect of it. We focus on nutrition. We focus on sleep and recovery. And then we focus on like strength and like the 1% kind of that like core strength, like the little things that make you better. And we also focus on the internal game and like what's going on in your mind as you're racing stuff. And for me, those are great conversations to have like over the phone with athletes. So usually I try to have a phone call before my and stuff and just kind of go over like, what are you thinking mentally going into the race? Let's like get that in check. And then we're like in communication all during the training too. So if they text me and they're like, man, it was a really tough day today, I'm kind of like there to up and say, well, like, what was the weather like? Is it humid? Is it super hot? Like, a lot of my athletes right now are having tough work because it's so hot and humid outside. And it doesn't mean you're not getting better. It just means that the conditions are tough. So yeah, we work a lot on that kind of like side of things for sure.
Well, so you mentioned tougher conditions. Where is it harder to run, in the desert or high in the mountains for you?
Oh, well, see, I like the dry heat. Like, I'm from Texas originally. The dry heat doesn't bother me as much. It's still like hard, but it's like kind of fine. Humid heat, I think, like when I lived in Virginia, that is the worst that I have ever been in. I was running so slow. I like could not hit workouts at all. It was so tough. So I would take altitude at 7,000 feet over the like humid heat any day.
Yeah, born and raised in New York, started running out there. Running out there is like trying to breathe through a straw.
It is
Like,
so hard. Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
I would prefer to run out here in the desert over that as well. Give me the heat.
Yeah.
I've gotten acclimated to running in humidity as well because I did live in Texas myself, but you know, it is so hard and it's mentally sapping, right? Like, because as much as you try not to compare, that still exists. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. Like, if anybody goes through your feed there is positivity on top of positivity on positivity. And it's awesome to see. But how do you stay so positive, even if things aren't going well for you? Any mind hacks that you have that you can share with our audience, especially as they're getting started in their endurance sports journey?
Yeah, I think reframing things is really important. Like if I do have a tough day, kind of reframing it, thinking of the things that from it is really important. And it's hard to do sometimes in your own mind mentally. So having like a friend or a coach that you can talk with, like after those hard workouts, someone that really understands what your goals are and can kind of help you through really helps. So my husband is great with me, and I hope that I'm great with him too. I think that I am, but we both kind of help each other out if we've had a tough workout or something like that, and say like, no, remember you did this like yesterday, like, you know, you're fine. And like just kind of reminding you of like what you've done and stuff. So I think that's like one of the biggest things that helped me is reframing things, and then just having that like trusted core group of people around me to pick me up if I'm like feeling down, you know.
And you're still coaching your husband to this day, correct?
Yes, yeah, fun.
See, so on a consistent basis, right? You're having those conversations and have somebody to bounce those ideas off of and be able to work together, which is super important. You know, having a peer, for lack of a better phrase, to be able to provide you that kind of support is amazing.
Totally.
One of the things I have down here is, you know, and you touched on it in going through the run free training 5 focal points, right? Runners have a lot to focus on, right? From strength, not just running. So yeah, go out and run, but then you have strength training, core work, balance work, hydration, sleep, gear. What's the best tip you've ever received about any of those things or managing any of those
Oh
things?
wow, the best tip, man. I think, man, there's so many like good tips, but I think one thing for me is just uh, like getting in the habit of doing those things and like making small changes each day, because a small change, if you like do it over and over and over again, leads to like big changes. And so if you want to get better, it doesn't have to be this like giant change where it's like, well, now I'm going to be like so focused on like getting 10 hours of sleep and eating right and training hard every day and this and this and this. If you're just starting off, like pick one small thing, work on that. Once you get that under control, do another thing and another thing and another thing. And then eventually it turns into big change, and you've like kind of built your life and your habits around.
Yeah, but we're type A. We want to have everything right now.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I have found if you are someone that does that, it leads to burnout pretty quickly.
Yes.
You know, like it's hard to just be like so type A for so long. So like just make those little changes, and like over time it'll lead to something big.
Yeah, we've had a couple of sports psychologists on this fireside chat, and they write for us too. One of the questions I posed to both of them is the impact of social media on these things too, right? Because if you're trying to make one change, you know, sleep for 10 hours, let's say, but somebody's, you know, up and they've uploaded their workout to Strava and it's at 3:35 in the morning. They clearly couldn't have slept for 10 hours. And so then you get into this, you know, competition, I guess, in a way, and it makes it really difficult to figure out what to work on. So if you have an athlete that you're coaching, right, how do you help them in that scenario, right? If it's, hey, I need to work on X, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, I saw Joe, you know, uploading the Strava and doing Y. How do you bring them back?
Yeah, I think just telling them that like every athlete is different, and something that works for one person isn't going to necessarily work for you. Like if my athlete, we'll just keep using like my athlete Joe on Strava. So Strava Joe, I think like maybe that's the schedule that he's gotten into, and like he has to work out at that time because he has work or whatever, but he goes to sleep at like 7 p.m. every night. Like, you don't know what Joe's like habits are. So focus on you and what's going to make you the best instead of looking at like what other people are doing. And really, like, comparison is the thief of joy, I think. You know, like, if you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, it's taking away from like the experience that you so yeah, I feel like it's easier to say than to actually do, but just trying not to compare yourself and just like focus on comparing you to like you from yesterday is like a great thing to do.
Yeah, and sometimes, comparing yourself to yourself of the past is, not the greatest thing to do either.
Yeah.
I've been running for, trails for about 10 years now, and I was in the middle of a race, and I literally stopped myself and I said, you are trying to run the way 40-year-old Jason ran, and you are 48 now. Like, they're not one and the same anymore.
Yeah.
And I actually wound up enjoying the race the rest of the way instead of trying to push a pace that I knew I couldn't hold. We talk about going out too hard, right? I knew I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Slow down.
Yeah. I think I like comparing myself to myself in the short term, because I think that helps me know, like, am I getting better, like, in this buildup that I'm doing? Because I think that is important to do, because if you're not getting better in that buildup, you might be doing something wrong. But I don't like comparing myself to like things that I've done like way, way, way in the past, because I'm in a totally different spot now. So I think like looking back and reflecting and seeing like what have I done that's like caused success in the past is good and like healthy, but I don't think that it's good to like hung up on it. So yeah, that's kind of what I think about like that, and compare yourself to yourself.
Totally agree. For those of you who are just joining us, my name is Jason Bahamundi. I'm one of the owners of Run, Try, Bike, a multimedia platform focused on helping beginners with tips regarding all of endurance sports, whether that's road running or trail running, whether that's sprint triathlons or Ironman triathlons. Joined today by Om Gandhi, who's also a co-owner of Run, Try, Bike, and Rachel Tomajczyk. And we're just discussing, endurance sports, and in this case, trail running with Rachel, and getting some tips from her and get some lessons. She's also a coach with Ryan Hall's Run Free Training. So if you're interested in getting coached by Rachel, make sure you check that out as well. We mentioned being type A. So what's the strangest thing you've tried to control and realize that you can't, and it doesn't really matter?
Yeah, I think for me, like, I had an eating disorder when I was in college. So trying to like control my weight and things like that has been something that's been like super detrimental for training. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've like to overcome in that sense. But I don't think it's something where it's like weight like doesn't matter. I think that there's really like a healthy range that you can be in and be like in the best shape for like your body to be able to run or bike or swim or all of them as well as you can. And so there's like that healthy range, and if you're below that, it's not good. If you're above that, it's not good. So it does matter, but it doesn't matter like as much as I thought that it did, and it didn't matter like in the way that I thought that it did.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the articles out there about eating disorders for endurance athletes, and that's men and women, right? It's not just exclusive to women.
Right.
Is that something that you talk about a lot, and are open about it to help others?
Yeah, I try to. Definitely, if it comes up in conversation, I like want to be there for people that are kind of struggling with that or struggling with body image issues. Because I think that is a big thing in our sport, like endurance sport, because like I was saying, there is kind of that optimal range of like, you're going to do your best if you're in this range, but you can go like too far in that direction, and it's not a good thing. It's not making your sport sustainable or fun anymore.
Yeah, one of the things that I saw on your post that you talked about your 1 year anniversary, and your husband's Instagram handle is on there. So I clicked on it, and he's got this amazing thing that he's looking to accomplish, which is to run a 250 marathon and to bench press 250 pounds, which sort of takes away from the skinny, scrawny runner, right? Like that's,
Yes.
you don't typically compare those two. So
Right.
how is he balancing that, and how are you helping him to balance that?
Yeah, man, it's so hard. That's something that we've discovered like over the years, because it is kind of like, if you're heavier, you don't like typically run as fast, but then if you're lighter, you don't typically lift as heavy. So it's an interesting thing to kind of balance. But yeah, I think just like talking with each other, and kind of like what I was saying, he's like down about something, I'm like there to encourage through it and stuff. But yeah, I think right now he's learning a lot about how running and lifting are pretty similar. And he's had like me as a running coach, but he hasn't had like a lifting coach before. So one of his friends is actually helping him out on that side of things. But he's learning that it's really important to have like recovery days in lifting, just like it is in running. And so I think that can be something that kind of gives a big like boost. But yeah, right now his running has been like getting better and better and better. Lifting has stayed it was getting better and better, and now it's like a stagnant place a little bit, but he's still like working through that. I think he just really needs to like get over this like one that and like hurdle that he's kind of facing, and then I think he'll make progress on the lifting side. But it's also hard because he's enjoying running and getting faster so much. So he's like, I want to do this because it's something that I said that I wanted to do, but I also kind of fast. So it's tough to balance.
What's your husband's name?
Drew.
Hey, Drew, feel free to change your goals, man. It's okay. It's okay.
I think he definitely always wants to lift and run, even if he like didn't hit like 250, which I think he will. But if he didn't, I think he would still like,
no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
I think you'll do it.
Yeah, he got it.
It looks like we have a question from the audience.
We do. We have a question from Reed. He's asking, does Rachel self-coach?
Oh yeah, I do self-coach. Yeah, so I coach myself. Ryan was coaching me, Ryan Hall, like before when I was on the track, the road, and then I decided to switch to trail, and we kind of talked about it, and he's like, yeah, it might be good if you like found like a coach that knew more about trails, because I don't really know how to do that and stuff. But I felt like just through the years, I kind of knew what worked well for me, just like having different coaches and different experiences. And I had like about like how to core trails, and it is kind of similar to like the track and like the roads and stuff. So yeah, I've kind of figured it out for myself, I think. And yeah, just like enjoying it a lot.
Very cool. Yeah. So what has been the thing that you learned on the road that you've been able to translate? What one thing?
Yeah, I think like a lot of the structure of the workouts are similar. Like it just looks different because it's on a trail versus the road, but I'll still do intervals where it's like I'm doing like hill intervals instead of flat track intervals. I still have recovery days. I still have like threshold days. They're just on the trail instead of like road track, stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of things are very, very similar, that the week is structured around.
We talked a little bit about eating disorders and for both men and women. And it's a topic that seems to be coming out more often, and I love it that people are being more open. So thank you for being open about what you have gone through. Along those lines, what would you like to see happen in trail running, in trail racing? More women, longer races? You know, what would you like to see happen in the community?
Yeah, I think just seeing people push their limits more, which I feel like people are doing more and more. So the thing that I've really appreciated about the trail versus track. There are so many things, but I think the community is really, really supportive on the trail, which is really cool to see. I think that also there's just like this excitement that's around trails, and everyone's like really excited about the races, and a lot of races are getting like live streamed now, and there's a lot of like publicity around it, which is really, really cool to see. And I feel like in the track world, that's like a big problem where like you have 80 different subscriptions to watch like the track season, you know, and no, it's not accessible to anyone. So on the trail, it's really cool just to see that there's live streams that are just on YouTube for like everyone to watch, and it's kind of like accessible to people. So I think just more and more of that will be awesome, and the people that the trails are so cool and like fun, and encouraging, exciting, that I think that people will see that in the race that watch too.
Yeah, and not to put down track, but when you have a live stream from a race like the one you just participated in, and the view is of the mountains and the forests and the trees versus an oval, you know, it's also appealing to the folks at home that are watching too.
That's true. Also in track races, I feel like everyone like gathers around like the steeplechase water pit steeplechase to like watch the falls and the wipeouts, hopefully, that happen. But on the trail, those could happen at any moment. So like every moment on the trail could be a wipeout moment. So that's something else to look forward to in trail racing too.
Not to mention if you get into races like Ohm is about to do with a through hike, or what I've done at Cocodona, and Ohm will be racing at Moab. Those dirt naps, they don't happen on the track.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
So there's a lot of exciting things that are happening on the trails. So do you think you'll see yourself, or do you envision yourself doing longer races, getting into the 50-mile, 100-mile, 200-plus mile events eventually?
Ohm is nodding because every time we meet up and get to see each other at a shoot or like a Merrell thing, he's like always pushing everyone to like get to the ultras. So yeah, eventually that's something that I want to do, just because it's like, it sounds hard. It sounds like it's something that would push my limits, you know. I think right now I'm enjoying like the shorter races and the speed, like while I'm younger. But I definitely.
What are you trying to say?
Then that I'll do it.
I'm only 28, right?
Look, I get that I'm 48 years old. That doesn't make me slow.
No, it doesn't. It makes you, I think, have more endurance. Like, I think that there are more and more people that are like their peak and the ultras like later in life. And so I don't think, like, for me, that's probably not my strong suit right now. So like, I want to hit whatever my strong suit is, and I think that'll be my strength later. But I think the strength is in the shorter stuff.
It's interesting, right? Because you go through different phases in life, and you know, I raced ultras for about 8-9 years, 100-milers, and earlier this year, late last year, I was like, I'm gonna try to go back down to like a 50K and race them hard. One of the things I've learned out here in Arizona is us old dudes in those 50K and shorter distances are fast. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So I'm moving myself back up to the longer, like I raced the 25K, I think, and I got smoked. And I was like, let's go back up to the 50K.
Yeah. Well, it's also hard, I think, like you have to train for what you're going to be racing for. If you've been training for ultras for a little and haven't done like a speedier race in a while, that's a big like shock to the system. So who knows, you could go back and like be really good at some of the speedier stuff if you have like a specific block just focused on that, but it is hard to switch and go back.
Yeah, I enjoy the buffet at the aid station after I've hiked up a mountain, hang out for a little while before I get moving again.
There you go. Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all.
None whatsoever. Oh, go ahead, Om.
Yeah, I just had a couple quick questions before we move to the rapid fire. What's your favorite trail that you've raced on so far, and what's your favorite Merrell shoe?
Oh, my favorite trail that I've raced on. There are so many good trails. I loved like the Broken Arrow course. That was like a really fun course to run on. We were like on some of the Western State course, which was just like super, super cool. And it was like beautiful. It was a great day. We got to run on some snow too, which I was like kind of nervous about because it was on a downhill, but and like the shoes that I was wearing were really good, which is my favorite shoe. The Merrell long shoes are my favorite shoes to race in. For the races that I'm running, which are kind of like up to marathon. So yeah, they are super sleek and fast, and I feel like I'm making them, which is great.
Anything else, Owen?
No.
All right, so we're going to jump into our rapid fire questions now. So, unlike guests of the past, Rachel has not studied, so this will be her first one. Yes, I'm looking at you, Maria. When you're out running, music, podcast, or nothing?
Depends on the day. Either nothing or music. But I've been listening to podcasts recently. That's a tough one. Usually it's nothing.
But when you do listen to music, what kind of music are you listening to?
I really like if it's a hard workout, I'll listen to more like pump up jams. Like Two Friends are like one of my favorite artists that like good like pump up music and just like mixes, I guess, that are fun to listen to. And then that way, if you listen to like a mix from like a DJ or something like that, you don't have to like scroll through which song to hit because every like 20 or 30 seconds changes and like the drop, you know.
I like it.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food to eat?
I love popcorn. That's probably
Yes.
my snack. Yeah, I love it. It's my
Me
favorite.
too.
Yeah.
I love popcorn. Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I'm starting to lose this. I'm starting to lose this tug of war.
How many people have said yes for the pineapple?
Too many at this
Too
point.
At least five. At least five.
Maybe just enough.
You're in New York, you said, right?
I am, yes.
You better not let anybody around there hear you say that.
Really? Okay.
It's probably more of a downstate thing. You're in the Adirondacks. It's probably more of a downstate thing.
Yeah.
Is candy corn a real candy?
Yes, definitely.
Oh. You're slowly
What?
becoming...
You don't think it is? How is it not a candy?
It's like candle wax.
Candle wax. It has like tons of sugar in it. That's all it is.
Yeah, but you could get something with flavor at least that has sugar in it. A Snickers bar has flavor.
Yeah,
and plenty of sugar.
That's true. That's true. But if you just want a straight shot of sugar, pop a candy corn.
What was the
good for the ultras?
That's true. There used to be a candy when I was a kid, so probably way before your time. It actually was a stick of sugar, and it was called Fun Dip, and you dipped it in other sugar.
Yeah. Fun Dip
So you love that? You love that too, then?
Yeah, that was like, I loved that as a kid. I loved Nerds Ropes were probably my favorite.
There you go.
Sour straws.
There you go.
So good.
Did you ever have lemon heads?
No, I wasn't a huge fan of those.
Man, that is straight sugar and it is sour. Woo.
Really? I have not tried. Yeah.
Are peeps disgusting and why?
Yeah, I would say so. It's like a blob.
They are disgusting, period.
Oh, good. We agree on that.
We're back on that. Are circus peanuts disgusting and why?
Yeah, probably. But I don't, yeah, just, yes.
They're awful. Like, who thought this was a good idea?
Yeah, you could have like way better, like pistachios or like a nut mix or something like that. There's so many, if you want to eat like that type of food, there's so many better things you could go for.
So many better things. And the fact that they still sell these things is amazing to me, which means people are buying them.
Yeah, somehow they're not like out of business.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, oh no, that's so hard. Now I'm blanking on all the movies because that's what happens when
Of course.
fast. I think my husband and I always watch like the Harry Potter series in October, so like I think that's probably my favorite series of movies, just because there's like good movies around, and that was big like in my childhood. So yeah.
Harry Potter it is. Favorite TV show?
Um. Ooh. I love The Office. Yeah, that's probably my favorite. The Office, Parks and Rec is really good, but I think The Office tops it on my end. That would be another good debate question for people.
Absolutely. You mentioned you've been listening to podcasts lately. What are you listening to now?
Um, some like running podcasts, some that are just kind of like about random stuff. I think Ryan has like a good podcast on like it's just called the Run Free podcast, so I'll listen to that some. And Stuff You Should Know is like a great podcast for like random topics. I really like that. I like listening to Joe Rogan because he just has like all these crazy like guests on, and you get to hear so many different perspectives and stuff. So yeah, if I want to just like a random topic, it's usually one of those.
Awesome. Well, Rachel, thank you for joining us on our Fireside chat. Let the audience know where they can find you, where you're racing next, how they can keep up with you.
Yeah, so my Instagram is Rach Runs World. And this week I'm racing at the US Mountain Camp, and then the weekend after that, it's the US VK Champs in Loon Mountain. So, those are my next two races, and then I'll head off to Europe for a season. So super excited for the rest of trail.
Tell the audience what VK is because I didn't know, and I found out when I read your Instagram feed.
Yeah, that was something I didn't know until like a year ago when I trails either. But it's a race that is a 5K or less in distance, and it's 1,000 feet up. So it's just a really quick, like punchy climb.
So for those of you who are interested in following Rachel, it's Rach Runs World. She's also a coach with Ryan Hall's Run Free coaching platform, so check her out there. Thank you guys for joining us. You will be able to watch this entire conversation on our Instagram feed here very soon, as we'll post it there as soon as we get off it. But by the end of the week, early next week, you'll be able to find it on our YouTube channel. If you've missed any of our other Fireside chats, you can find it there or on our website as well. It's across the header bar on the top of our website, which is runtrymag.com. Thank you for moderating. Rachel, thank you for the conversation. Really appreciate it. Good luck this weekend. Have fun.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Have a great night, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.